I'm sitting here in Melbourne with Pat Donato, who's the CEO of BDO. He was recently appointed this role on the 4th of February. BDO, tell us a little bit about the organisation and your role.
Okay, well, BDO is an international professional services practice. We do have an international presence. My role is the CEO of Melbourne and Sydney.
I wondered about that. So you're the CEO of Melbourne and Sydney.
Correct.
And then there is a national body of partners or directors?
Well, we have what we call the federated model, which is different ownership in each state. And effectively it's run by a national board, which comprises of the CEOs and managing partners of each state. But the Melbourne and Sydney practice is owned by one particular group of partners. Yep. And I oversee that group.
And you've been appointed to that role after coming to BDO about 2 years ago.
That's right.
Acting CEO, now officially appointed the CEO.
Well, I came into the firm 2 years ago to head up what's called the advisory practice. The advisory practice includes our non-external audit and non-tax services such as corporate finance, performance improvement, fraud and forensic, internal audit, and including insolvency. I'm not quite sure insolvency fits in advisory, but it's in there. So my role was So my role was to come into BDO and head that part of the practice up and try and get it to grow into new markets and take the BDO brand into the larger corporates. And then we lost our previous CEO, Vin Brown, back in September, I think it was. And so we were CEO-less for a little while. And then I came into the interim role because the firm clearly needed to be led at that point in time.
Well, because it's a big gig. I mean, CEO of something like BDO. And I was wondering on the way over here, what is the mandate of the CEO of BDO? Do you have your own KPIs? Do you set your own KPIs? Is it based on growth? Is it based on profitability? In 12 months' time, when you look back, where do you think that you want to?
Well, it's based on all of those things.
All of those things.
At the end of the day, we have a very significant practice which has significant growth opportunities. So my role is to work with my board to find where the opportunities are for our practice to grow into. Then it's about taking those strategic opportunities and making them into executable plans for each of the groups.
Yep.
And then to set the KPIs for those groups and ensure that along the way we have profitability, which is clearly very important.
Of course.
People need to be paid, otherwise they won't come to work.
Because it seems that there seem to always be two types of CEOs. There are ones who are always focused on growth, and then you have some CEOs whose job sometimes is just to come in and make things cheaper.
Yeah. Well, I'm one of the growth CEOs. My natural inclination is to grow. I'm not a cut and dice and slice sort of person. Notwithstanding, I understand profitability, and clearly we need to run a profitable business.
It's got to be bottom line.
Correct. And but I am all about growth and I'm all about people. So it's actually combining those two things together to create a successful practice.
Well, I was also on that topic of growth. I imagine that one of the biggest challenges with an organisation like BDO is differentiating yourselves. Mm-hmm. How do you go about positioning BDO in the landscape of the advisory market?
Well, look, there's a couple of different aspects to it. Depends which market you're talking about. And I think if I could just maybe just backpedal a little bit and talk about markets and where we want to be.
Yeah.
BDO is in a bit of a unique position in that it has the ability to work in two different markets, and that is that we can work in the traditional space, which is the SME market. But at the same time, because we're global, because we're a large national practice, because we have significant capability within that, we can actually scale up to larger corporates. And so the key differentiation messages for the two markets are slightly different. Notwithstanding, it's actually the same service style that we ensure we bring into those two different markets. So, if I can then come back to answering the differentiation question. In the SME market, the differentiator is clearly the fact that we have very strong trusted relationships with our clients.
Because I would imagine that the SME is almost like the traditional base.
Absolutely. For BDO. It is the traditional base, it's our strength, it's where we've built this significant practice from. A large percentage of our clients are still in that market, and we don't intend to leave that market at all. In fact, we actually intend to strengthen our hold in that market. And in recent times, my recent appointment has forced me to rethink the strategy and work out where we're moving to next, and deliver the key messages to the directors and partners of this practice. And we want to continue to grow that market space. Now, in that market space, the key advantages we have over the traditional players there are that we are global. We have significant access to global IP. We have significant and varied range of capability we can offer the SMEs. Traditionally, they won't have access to those sorts of services with smaller practitioners, for example.
It also seems like that audience is BDO is more accessible to those sizes of organisation.
And notwithstanding that they can have access to all those different capabilities, they've still got the valued relationship, which is about trusted advice. They've still got that. And so, if I flip that round now to the corporate market, the challenge for us is, and a differentiator for us in the corporate market, is that we want to take those traditional values of relationship, working closely with our clients, having good customer intimacy, and taking that up to the larger corporates where they're used to having access to capability, global IP, and that's not what we're differentiating. We're differentiating on our service style is different, and the service style is about smaller teams, more experienced people working with the client, not doing it to the client. Those sorts of things are where we differentiate.
It's interesting when you look at the history of disruptive technologies. It usually begins with developing a service for a small client, such as like MYOB software or something like that. Starts with the SMEs, and they build up before they know it. They've got an enterprise system and taking over the larger.
Well, that's right. That's right. So it's. I think I used the words earlier before doing it by stealth, and that's effectively where we're at with it.
In terms of building the brand, now I caught you out, Pat, before when I was doing research for this article. I saw you on Facebook. I was wondering, are things like social media likely to be part of building the brand?
Absolutely, they already are. You do mention Facebook. We have a presence on Facebook. We have a presence on Twitter. Absolutely, we understand the social side of where we need to be as a practice. We understand that the demographics changing, and we need to be up with that.
I do wonder how many CEOs of large organisations you can find these days on Facebook.
Not too many.
Yeah, in fact, the Twitter accounts of a lot of CEOs, or let's say the PM of Australia, the biggest CEO we have, it's usually someone else who's writing it for them. Well, I really look forward to seeing what BDO does over the next 12 months under your guidance, and I look forward to reading about your developments on Twitter and seeing what you're up to on Facebook.
Look forward to it.
Thanks, Pat.
Thanks, James.
Cheers.
Thanks.
Signing off.